everybody to QuickBooks Online high-level overview, utilization tips and tricks presented by the Missouri SBDC. My name is Sandra Smart, and I am a consultant at the Missouri SBDC at Missouri State University in Springfield. So again, I'd like to welcome everybody. We're going to go through and look at some navigation tips today. We're going to talk about different transaction types and the flow of transactions associated with those. We'll look at matching. We'll talk about setting up rules to help simplify your QuickBooks Online. We'll also talk about setting up recurring transactions to simplify the process for you too. And then we'll briefly take a look at report generation and customization. I'm going to share my screen and go through the information with a sample QuickBooks Online company. If you just want to watch my screen, that's fine. If you want to take just a second to log in or bring up your QuickBooks so that you can maybe split your screen and follow along, that would be great too. But I'll go ahead and share my screen here and we'll get started. Thanks again for joining us. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started with navigation tips. And just so that everyone is familiar with where I'm saying to go, we'll start with that. If I refer to the gear is going to be in the upper right-hand corner. It's an easy way to access information from your company, to access lists, and then also to access different tools that are available. A couple things that I'll point out under the gear while we're here. You can access your company accountant settings. You can manage the users. This includes adding or inviting your CPA so that your CPA has access to your books, plus adding additional users. And in doing the adding the users, you can allow different types of access. So you can allow full access and you can allow partial access, view only, lots of different options there. Depending upon which version of QuickBooks Online that you have will dictate the number of users that you can invite. And just so that everybody knows, if you are looking at your QuickBooks Online, as we're going through today and following along, this demo sample company is in the Online Plus. And not all features are available in every QuickBooks Online version. So if you're using self-employed and I reference something and it's not there, it may not be available in your version. Sometimes things just aren't turned on. Those are questions that I'm happy to answer later. You can also modify your form styles, quickly access your chart of accounts. If you are like, okay, how do I get to my chart of accounts? And you happen to get up to the gear, you can get to the chart of accounts here. You can also get to it by clicking on your accounting button on the left nav, and we'll talk about that here in just a minute. Another cool feature, I'm going to go ahead and click on this, QuickBooks Labs. They have new tools that they're testing. So you can go out and check out, see if those are available. Currently, they have that cash flow dashboard widget. I'm going to go ahead and add it so that everybody can see when we go back into the QuickBooks file. Also have an import style, so it allows you to customize files a lot easier than it did before. So I've added that dashboard widget. I'm going to click back out of it. I'm going to go back up to the gear. You can easily access your list. And I'm going to go ahead and click on that so that you can see chart of accounts in there, recurring transactions, different sources. You can get to custom form styles here, along with under your company, payment methods, terms, and then attachments. You can also, under the list, very quickly get to the bring transactions or products and services up here. On the tools, reconcile is under tools, and budgeting. That audit log is there too. We'll come back if we have time at the end to briefly talk about the budgeting tool. It's pretty neat, being able to import previous year's data to start your budget and then to plan for the next year there. So again, that was the year. We can also go over to the Quick Create, which is over on the upper left with a plus new. This is a really quick way to access customer information and transactions associated with customers, also to access your vendor information and associated transactions, to access employee and payroll information, and then what they classify as other types of transactions. So if you need to make an entry, very easy to get in here and do that. If you need to do an inventory quantity adjustment, transfer, bank deposit, you can all access all of those easily here. You can always click show less, and it just gives you the few. I always show more, very quick way to get in and process some transactions. And as I'm going through this, you're going to notice that on some things, there are multiple ways to get in to start a transaction or to make a different type of entry. Use the one that works best for you on that. So the left nav is going to be this right here. You can hover over to select. You can just click directly on it. So I don't have to go over and click banking to get to my banking. I can just click banking. But if you're wanting to go, let's say in the sales, you want to go to your customers, you can come in quickly, hover over the sales, click on customers, and it will take you to your customer list. You can quickly search for a customer right here. Also on the left nav, I mentioned the chart of accounts earlier. If you hover over the accounts in the left nav, you can get into the chart of accounts, as you can use the gear up in the upper right-hand corner to get into the chart of accounts. So then you can go in and look at the different accounts that you have. It has the detail type, has your QuickBooks balance, and then your bank balance. You can easily go in to view the register to see what transactions are associated with that account. So if you're wanting to have two screens open at one time, there are a couple different options on that. You can duplicate. So you go up into your browser bar, you right click, then you see the duplicate, you left click the duplicate. And it opens up another window, just like you have, so that you're not trying to go back and forth to figure out transactions, or if you're trying to check something, you're not going in and out using the left nav. To do that, you can quickly click back and forth on the screens. If you have multiple computer screens or monitors, you can grab hold of the browser bar and drag it to another screen. And then you have access to work simultaneously in both of those screens. And I'll drag, you can't see my other screen, but I'll drag this back over so that you can see it easily duplicated it, and it will allow you to be able to look at both of the screens. A lot easier to read some of the information and to have multiple screens open on that. Shortcuts. A lot of people like to use shortcuts. They usually find 4 or 5 that really work for them, and everybody's a little bit different on that. I will share to get the shortcuts, you just need to do the Control-Alt/. If you're on a Mac, you need to do the Option Control /. Shows your company ID, and then it talks about the different shortcuts. So if you're wanting to do an invoice, instead of going up to the Quick Create and selecting invoice or going into sales to select invoice, you can do the Control-Alt-I, and then bring up that invoice screen. So lots of different options that you can go through and see what you might use frequently. If you like keyboard shortcuts, it's a great way to speed things up. And again, to get to that, it is Control, Alternate, and then the /. Also, if you want to have 2 screens up for the company file, I'm going to go into banking here, and I'm going to go to banking, and then I'm going to drag it up to the browser bar. And as you can see, the banking file screen pulls up. So I've got 2 of those, or I've got my pay transactions open and my chart of accounts open. So I can quickly toggle back and forth to make it easier, instead of going chart of accounts, back up to banking, back down to chart of accounts. I can go back and forth between those screens. If you're on your dashboard, somebody walks up to your desk and you really don't want to share the information on your dashboard with the person that's coming up, you can easily click the privacy button. So leave your QuickBooks file up and open, but it hides all of the financial information. I'm going to put that off really quick. And when I went into and added the app here, testing for the cash flow, it appears on the dashboard. So it quickly gives you a visual of money in and money out. Over it, it will tell you that net change, whether it's positive or negative. It will show you how much money in dollars is coming in and how much money in dollars went out in that particular month. Since this is a sample company, that's why you don't see information back from March back into 2019. Okay, so I'm going to go back up here. Just want to share with you so that everybody understands putting information into QuickBooks. Very important that it's put in correctly so that it goes to the right accounts. If you have a transaction that is bringing money in to your company, you can come up here and look under the customers, under that Quick Create, to see the different types of transactions that you can do. Now, an estimate obviously is just an estimate for someone that can quickly, once you have the estimate in the system, be converted to an invoice for a customer. So you don't have to recreate that invoice. But these are all transactions for money coming in and that generate revenue or sales for your company. Transactions associated with money going out under the vendors heading. So that could be an expense. You're writing a check, you receive a bill, you issue a purchase order for product, you get a vendor credit, you get a credit on your credit card. You can also print checks from here. Again, this is just one point of access from multiple points of access in the actual QuickBooks file. So let's go in and take a look at the invoice. And I had mentioned earlier, talking about recurring transactions, you could enter those in a couple different ways. And before I start to fill out this invoice information, you can see down here at the bottom where it says make recurring. One thing I will share with you, you need to save it. And then you can select make recurring. So we'll go up here, and I don't know, in the sample company, we have Amy's Bird Sanctuary. So that's what I'm going to select. For the invoice, we have an open invoice for billable time over here. I'm just going to go ahead and add that. Then I can save it. Comes up verifying that the invoice has been saved. And then I can go down here and hit make recurring. So you can do a scheduled, you can do a reminder, you can also do an unscheduled. You can select how many days in advance to create it. The customer information, as long as it's in the customer file, should pre-populate. You can select to send that email automatically, to print it later, and also to include unbilled charges if you're utilizing that function and if it's applicable to you. You can also set the interval on that. It could be weekly, monthly, could be on an annual basis, depending upon your needs and your specific company. You can set the start date, the end date. You can verify if the information included is accurate, and then you can save it. Same thing can be done in the expenses, and I'm going to go back up here and enter a bill. I'm going to go in and select the appropriate vendor. The vendor theory should have the terms on there. I'm going to put net 10, enter a bill number 1234. I'm going to put it under gas and electric under my utilities expense. Put $150 in there. If you're entering a bill that you want to have billable to a customer, you can select billable, and then you can put the customer over in the customer field. Since this is just for utilities, I'm going to leave it alone. I'm going to click save on that. So that bill has been entered in the system. When I run an accounts payable report, that bill will show up that it's coming due. You can also do the make recurring. And again, you can set it up as scheduled, a reminder, or unscheduled. Specify the parameters for the date, that start date, what that interval is, what category it needs to be assigned to. You can add a description in there if applicable. And then you can save that template. And one thing I do want to share is that if you're putting invoices in for your customers, you offer your customers some type of payment terms, could be 10 days, could be 30 days, you put that invoice in, you need to make sure that when you receive payment that you go back in and you receive the payment for that invoice, and you don't just try to match in your banking feed. So in there, you would go in, you would receive a payment. I'm going to, since this is the one that we did today, I'm going to go ahead and say you received the payment for the invoice 1038. I'm going to go here, just click Save and Close. The same thing goes for expenses. When you enter the bill and you get ready to pay that bill, instead of just letting it come through the bank feed, you need to go in and you need to select Pay Bills. And you can do that here under the Create Vendor, Pay Bills. You can also go down to your expenses, vendors, and you can click Make a Payment. You can also create bills associated with your vendors and expenses in the expenses on the left nav. Then we're going to reports. Your favorites are going to look very different depending upon if you customize those or if you just have the basic reports that originated with your setup. I always like the accounts receivable aging summary, I like the accounts payable aging summary. So you would go down to what you owe. This accounts payable aging summary, I put that up at the top so I have access to it. I don't have to type in find the report by name. I don't have to scroll down and look for it. So I'm going to go over here and favorite it. So you just click on the star. It leaves it in the section that it is in, but it also puts it up in your favorites. So a great way to put the reports that you look at the most or that are most relevant to the decisions that you're making for your business, to include those up there. If you decide you've added 5 or 10 reports and hey, I really don't need that report up there, I don't use it that much, you know, based on the flow of work through our business, you can always click the star again and it'll take it out of favorites. If you want to customize a report, you can do it while you're actually in the report, or you can click the customize. And then based on which report you selected, it will give you options to customize the report. You can click the arrows to show how many number of periods you want for the aging, how many days per period, what type of age method, current report date. I'm going to switch them to current. If there are any customer filters that you want on there, you can do that. You can change the header and footer, what prints, what doesn't print. I'm going to go down to the lower right and click Run Report. And then I'm going to click Save Customization. Definitely don't want to name it the same thing as a basic report. So receivable aging summary. I'm going to put a 2 there. Please use a naming, a nomenclature that makes sense to you, and that other people that are using your QuickBooks Online or have access to it, they would understand what the report was. You can add it to a report group. If you have a report group, you can do share and then specify who to share. On this, I'm going to just save it. I'm going to scroll back up and click the Back to Report list. And I'm going to select Custom Reports. And now that report that I just customized and saved is up the custom reports. So you can customize your reports based on your needs and then quickly identify those reports by clicking on custom reports. You can go over, you can edit, you can export it as a PDF or in Excel, or you can say, you know, I created that report, I did the customizations, it's just really not working the way that I thought it would, and you can delete it. So under the standard, lots of different options. QuickBooks Online has them grouped as relevant for that business overview, money that is owed to you, a whole section on your sales and your customers so that you can run reports based on that. That also has your inventory in it. So that valuation detail and summary. Physical inventory worksheets also on there. You can do a transaction by customer, sales by product detail. So again, lots of options. The next step one down, who you owe money to. That's why I put that accounts payable aging detail or aging summary up at the top and then favored it earlier. Expenses and vendors, sales tax for those of you that collect sales tax, that may be a report that you want to have up at the top so that you have easy access to know at any given point in time what that sales tax amount that you owe is. This is a very small employee section, a very small payroll section. If you have or you're using payroll through Intuit, that will be much more robust depending upon what your subscription is. And then the For My Accountant section. So I would encourage you to go through the reports, look at those, pull them up, see if they contain information that would help you make better decisions for your business. We already talked about the customer reports. Then the management reports that are available, you can customize those. The company overview simply has the P&L or the profit and loss and balance sheet included in it. The sales performance has the P&L, balance sheet, and then the sales by customer summary. And then the expenses performance has the P&L, the accounts payable aging detail, and then the expenses by vendor summary. So those should be standard. You can always go in and modify those, and you can add whatever reports that would be beneficial to your business, put them all together in one place so that you can generate them all at one time, if that makes sense for you to make decisions. So I'm going to go over here and say, let's edit the company overview. And then I'm going to have company overview, and I'm going to put extra reports. You can see as you click on each one of these, the options that you have to make changes. You can always preview it to see what it's going to look like. You've got the table of contents, which will be set up based on the reports that are included. You have the preliminary pages where you can add a page title and additional information, additional pages if necessary. You can go down to the reports, and you see that profit and loss is in there, and that is currently set up for this year. Balance sheet this year, so that's going to be as of whatever date you run the report. You click add report, easily go in and let's add our accounts receivable, and we can add that customized report. Or we can just say, really, we want that accounts receivable aging summary. That's all that we need here. You can change the title or leave it the same, and then you can tell it what period that you want. So that's been added. Accounts payable. We want to know what's coming up. We can add that, again, changing that title. And then we can click Save and Close. And notes on there, you can also add notes. I'm going to save and close that. And then now you see there's a company overview that has the extra reports in it. And you can name it whatever you want, but it is there. You can see who created it, when it was last modified. You can tell a period. And then again, you can view it, or you can go in, delete it if it doesn't work for you or doesn't make sense to you. You can copy it as a base template to start another customized management report. You go to export as PDF, so lots of different options there. Okay, so I'm going to go over to banking now. We're going to talk a little bit about matching. I already shared to make sure that you, if you're creating invoices and you're entering bills, so that would be money you're getting at some point in time in the future, that's going to go into accounts receivable. When you receive the funds, you need to make sure that you're going in and receiving the payment for that particular customer on that, so that you can close that transaction, remove it from the balance sheet, and not leave it hanging out there. Same thing for bills. If you're entering a bill and you're going to get a check or you're going to pay with a credit card, you need to make sure and go in and pay that bill so that it reflects appropriately in your banking transactions. And you can match. You can see easily here, one record found that matches. Right here, you see a lot of uncategorized income, uncategorized expense. On those, you need to make sure that you're categorizing those appropriately and they are going into the income or appropriate account if you've received the funds, and if they're going into an expense account if you've spent the funds, the money was going out of the business. So 2 records found down here. First, clean car. If you guys have transactions from different dates for the same amount, QuickBooks will show you 2 records found. You need to go in and view that and select which one. Was it from 5/11? Was it from 5/18? You can easily change that. You can select to find other matches. If you change it and you're like, it was on 5/11 for 1999, you can click match. It takes it out of your for review, puts it into categorized. So let's say you accidentally click through and matched it, but it wasn't the correct transaction. You can simply come over to the categorize tab and click undo. If you have matched several transactions and you realize that you got off at some point in time, you can simply come in and you can select them in a batch. And it'll tell you how many items are selected, and you can click undo, and it now takes it out of the categorized and puts it back into the for review so that you can go in and modify that. On the uncategorized expense, we'll just take a look at one of those. A rental, you spent $100, definitely don't want to leave it as uncategorized expense. So a rental is in here because this is a dummy company. We're going to add that. They're a vendor, so we're going to click save really quick. And we're going to go categorize it. Let's see. We're going to put it in equipment rental. On that, you can put a memo if there is an invoice number associated with it or some way for you to track it. You can select the customer or project if it was specific to a customer or project, and then you can also select billable here. You can go in when you're doing that. Everything from a rental in this sample company is for equipment rental. You can create a rule. You could also add an attachment. So to create a rule, you go in, name the rule, and then you select the applicable information. So this is going to be if transactions have money going out of any of the bank accounts And depending upon the bank accounts that you have, if it's not all of them, it's just one of them, you can go in and select one. So just click off all bank accounts and say only if it comes through on a MasterCard. Could be one. And so this could be, you know, a rental equipment. So it includes all of the following or any of the following, and then you can describe in that description and the bank text the amount contains. You can also add additional conditions. Make sure that you select the appropriate transaction type in the appropriate category so that it's classifying everything appropriately. If you were receiving a bill and it had something that you needed to split out on it to two different accounts, you can click add a split, and then you can select split by a percentage or split by a fixed dollar amount. And then because this still says amount here, there's only an amount for the detail number 1, an amount for detail number 2, and then this category for equipment rental is already selected, but we would need to add another category. If you happen to click that and you're like, no, I'm just going to leave it all in one category, you can simply click the trash can icon and it goes back to the way that it was before. You have an option to automatically confirm transaction this rule applies to. So that is up to you based on the rules that you're putting together. I would encourage you to make sure that you have the appropriate rule. Let it go through once or twice to make sure that it's going to the right account so that you don't get a year down the road and realize that, wow, I really needed that to go to another account. What am I going to do now? Can't necessarily go back and change it, especially after you reconcile, that being a process. So just something to think about to make sure that when you do create the rules and when you do create recurring transactions, that those are set up in a way you test them at least once to make sure they're going exactly where you think that they should be going. So I'm not going to click to automatically confirm this. I'm just going to save. And then it comes up and it tells us that that rule has been saved. So if you ever want to check what rules you have, you just go up here to your banking tab, which we're already on. Click rules. And then it will show you what that name is, the conditions, and it will allow you to edit it. You copy it as a starting point to create another rule. You can leave it on there if you're not using it and just disable it, or you can say, you know, that rule didn't work the way that I wanted it to. I don't want to edit it, I just want it gone. You can select delete on there. You can also click on rules under the banking from the left nav, and you can at any time go in and create new rules in the upper right hand corner here. Under the gear, I showed you earlier in the invoice and entering a bill, how to create recurring transactions, remembering to make sure that you're saving the transaction prior to setting up the recurring transaction. You can also quickly go up here and select recurring transaction. You can see the information. So we've got a telephone bill, the monthly building lease, we've got that utilities, and then we've got that invoice. And here's the transaction type in that third column over. You can quickly add more through this recurring transactions. You just go in and select the transaction type. I'm going to put another expense in there, click OK. And then here's the screen we looked at before when we were entering a similar screen when we were entering the bill. So again, that template name, include all of the relevant information. Make sure you categorize it. correctly into an expense account. And then you could just click Save Template on that, and it would add it to your recurring transactions list. I'm going to go back to the banking on the left nav. Receipts is another function that can help simplify things. If you're scanning your receipts in, or if you have the app where you can just take a picture and automatically send it in, the receipts will show up with the transaction date, a description of what it can get off of there, usually has an amount. Sometimes if there are any handwritten numbers on a receipt, it doesn't get the amount correct, but you can go in and modify that. If you prefer to scan receipts in so that they're attached to files and you're not trying to keep a bunch of paper receipts, you can scan them in, name them, and then drag them and drop them to this section right here, or you can click the Browse to Upload button. Once the receipts are in here, very similar to the banking feed, you've got the for review. So you're going to have a long list of receipts if you use this function. Once you have opened it up and reviewed it, then it will show up in the Review tab. This is a very easy way to have your documentation right along with your transactions in your QuickBooks Online. You go in, you can select what category it needs to go to, you verify that amount, you can set up a rule so that if there's one place that you are always purchasing something from, you need, be nice to have that information in there. You can set up a rule for that so that it automatically knows if it's coming in from a specific vendor that it needs to classify it in a certain account. So again, it just simplifies utilization of QuickBooks Online. And it looks like we've got just a few minutes left. I want to quickly show you the budgeting tool, and then I'll be happy to answer questions from a high-level overview perspective. Everybody handles things a little bit differently. They have different guidance from the DPA on how information should be put into their QuickBooks. So again, high-level questions, absolutely happy to answer those. But I'm going to go back to the gear really quick here, and under Tools, Budgeting. And since this is a sample page, I'm going to put it in here, so I'm going to say Add Budget. Again, name it. I'm going to name this one Budget 1 for simplicity's sake. It's going to be for this current fiscal year, monthly intervals, and here, do I want it to pre-fill data? You can say no, you can manually input it. I do want to have it pre-filled, and then it will, depending upon how years you have QuickBooks Online, it will allow you the option to select that. I'm going to do 2020. And then you can see how it populates based on the information that is in the QuickBooks Online company file. And remember, I said we didn't have anything until after March of 2020, so it pre-populates current information in there. We're not in July yet, so there isn't any information, so we can go in and we're going to create the budget. And then now you can go in and modify information. So if you had billable expense income, let's say of $500 a month, you could put $500 in there. You click the arrow or hover over it, it will tell you what it can do. So it will copy the values all the way across. So $500 doesn't make sense in there because we weren't operating, but let's say starting from June, that does make sense. So we can easily put that in there, hit that button, copy it all the way across, and you decide that that's not going to work, hit the button, and it will undo it. And it'll just leave it in the month that you originally put it in. So you can go through all of the different line items for your income accounts, your cost of goods sold, and then your expense accounts, make adjustments. You can click save. And then you've got budget one showing what period it's for, when it was created. You can edit it. You can do a run budget versus actual report so that you can compare, hey, we estimate this is what we're going to do in revenue and that these are our expenses or what our expenses would be. How close are we to that? To allow you to make adjustments and pivot as a business owner going through that. So again, lots of different options there. Okay, Sherry, if we have questions, I'll be happy to take those.
Sounds good. We do have one question. There's a request asking if you could go over the export feature quickly under the gear.
Go for exporting for, so just the export under the tools?
Yes. And if feel free to add more detail in the chat if you need to, for the person that asked the question. Otherwise, if it's okay to just go over the general feature.
Sure. So you can go in and if you haven't used it before, it's going to walk you through kind of like what you see on my screen. Trying to figure out, you know, what are you trying to do? Are you trying to get tax information? Exporting, I'm trying to think on why if you're exporting to other reports possibly. I'll click continue here. Oh, I must select an option. I'm going to select something else. So different reports, if you're going to QuickBooks Desktop and trying to take some information, making that backup, which QuickBooks Online has redundant backups, and you can always contact their data service for questions on that. Your exporting list. You can select, let's say you just want to export a vendor list and go through. And export that. It's going to be a zip file. It'll tell you when it's done. Was there more information on that question?
Nope, it was just, oh, go ahead. It was just the general export feature.
Okay. So yeah, and you can see when I had my screen up on the export that they're for additional reports. You can also, if you're in, let's say that there is a certain report that you want. I'm going to go back to the standard ones. Let's say you want to do sales by customer detail. So you're in the report. You can always click this button to export it as a PDF or in Excel, depending upon what your need for exporting the data is and how you're going to use it.
If anyone has any questions, you are welcome to unmute yourself to ask, or you can drop those questions in the chat. As of right now, we do not have any other questions in the chat at this time.
Okay. Well, while people are thinking potentially of questions that they might have, I just want to say thank you very much, everyone, for taking time out of your day to join us at the Missouri SBDC to learn a little bit more about navigating through QuickBooks and handling different types of transactions and creating those customized reports. We really appreciate you seeing the time to join us. I also want to share with you that we have offices throughout the state. So if you have additional questions on your QuickBooks Online, please feel free to reach out to your local office. If they don't have the expertise in the office, they'll reach out to one of the offices that does, but we are here to help support you and to help answer questions. One clarification there, we do not give any tax advice. That would be something that you would need to reach out to your CPA on, that we're happy to provide support and answer questions on the QuickBooks Online. Also, QuickBooks Desktop, we have specialists across the state in that too. So again, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Sandra. I have put the link to our website with our listing of locations if you are needing to find a Missouri SBDC office near you. Other than that, we hope everyone has a wonderful week. Thank you very much for joining us. And again, if you need to follow up with us, you can reach out to us at the website that's in the chat. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.